Hello, ladies and gentlemen, it's Mr. Mike Vonbeardingham here. Today I am joined with the rather marvellous Mr. Mark KIRKMAN from, you'll probably know him from the band Beggar as the guitarist, but as we will find out in the coming minutes and hour or so, he's been involved in many, many more things, which we shall talk about. So, Mr. Mark, hello.
Hi Mike, how are we doing?
I am not bad, mate. Yourself?
Yeah, good, thank you.
Yeah,
in these strange times.
Indeed, in these troubled times of anguish and woe that we seem to be experiencing. How are you dealing with lockdown?
Yeah, lockdown's been okay. I think obviously the band stuff's been off, but we've been doing a little live stream thing once a week on a Friday for an hour. I think we've done about 16 of them now.
Oh wow!
Which has been, we saw that other people were doing some kind of things like that, and we thought we'll give it a whack. So we decided to do that and just do an hour's worth of our. This is the ReMark part of my my guys as the duo, because obviously Becky and I live together.
Yeah.
And so we put up a stream, and we got 1,100 people watching it, viewing it.
Wow, that's impressive.
Was unbelievable. And we said, okay. And then we started getting messages, so can you play this, can you play that? And so we then sort of started streaming it with a theme in view. So number ones, one-hit wonders, 80s. And the messages that we got, people saying thank you, they couldn't believe how much they missed, music and this hour. And you go, please keep this hour up. It separates the week out for us, and that's been really, really good and positive.
Yeah, it has. I know with the stuff we do as well, the amount of people who say that they really look forward to it. It's sort of like a little fix, isn't it? You can't get out to gigs or anything, so just having that little thing to look forward to is quite nice in these times.
Yeah, and just the comments have been incredible. I've got to say, the support from people. We thought that people would get bored with it, but it's not true. People have been very, very supportive. We've done some music quizzes in the middle of it as well. For instance, we played some slightly more obscure stuff. Rather than the usual Sex on Fire and Zombie and stuff like that people would know. We've done things like Crash by the Primitives, and which again is a slightly different song that not everyone knows.
Yeah.
And songs, for instance, that were hits for an artist, but they weren't written by the artist. Tainted Love as an example. Everyone knows the Mark Armour version, but in actual fact, obviously, it's a Northern Soul song by Gloria Jones.
Oh, really? I've never heard the original.
No, and a lot of people wouldn't have done. Why would they?
Yeah.
That Wailing Songbird, Whitney Houston, I Will Always Love You. Number one for about 200 weeks, wasn't it? It was, but again, Dolly Parton.
Yeah, there's a really, really good version of that, because I've heard several versions of hers, and there was one that I heard where Chin Chin, where she's singing it and her voice is A, really beautiful, but B, it sounds like she's on the verge of tears and just breaking down. It's absolutely phenomenal performance, really, really good. Much better than Whitney, because it's got more soul and feeling in it. Yeah,
well, Whitney could sing, great genes as well. Obviously, she had a massive amount of Motown in her life. And there's no question, this was a woman that had a voice bell-like clear, a bit like Karen Carpenter, for instance, for me. When you actually listen to those kind of people singing.
Yeah.
Whereas I absolutely and completely prefer things like Led Zeppelin 1, where Robert Plant is singing, he's shouting, his voice, if you like, it's all coming from the heart.
Yeah.
It's very, very raw, very, very untreated.
Yeah.
As opposed to now, whereby, notes get fixed, don't they, with the use of auto-tune and stuff like that.
Well, that was one of the great things back in the day, wasn't it? Because you had to, a performance, when you recorded a performance, you actually recorded the performance. So that was kind of like a moment in time. Whereas now it's you have your moment in time and then it's just completely messed around with and changed into something else.
Yeah, we have the debate. You know, when you listen to some of the live albums from back in the day, and Made in Japan by Deep Purple, 1972. They weren't that interested in it really. They had to do an album to keep the record company happy, and so they were going out to Japan. They took Martin Birch and the Rolling Stones Mobile with them.
Oh, that's the Smoke on the Water, isn't it? Story.
No, in
Isn't
actual
it?
fact, not. No, that was the year before Machine Head.
Right. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, I'm a total Blackmore person.
Yeah.
And he's the reason why I play guitar. But we'll come to that, I'm sure. But they weren't interested really in the live album. Martin Birch came along, mic'd them up. They played, and they weren't really that interested in the end product. I mean, Roger Glover was, because Roger Glover, he's a big producer, as we know. But what came out of that was an incredible performance with them at their absolute zenith.
Yeah.
You listen to the album, there's a few mistakes in it, but generally speaking, it's a cracking album.
But it's live. Mistakes happen.
It's live, yeah. Fast forward a few years to what we call the seminal live albums of our time. Live and Dangerous by Thin Lizzy, of course.
Yeah.
Is one of them. Song Remains the Same by Zeppelin.
Yeah.
Unleashed in the East by Judas Priest. All these have had a severe amount of touching up.
I suppose that's the problem when you got into the 80s and that sort of time, when you had the big productions. You're using more tracks in the studio, and everyone wanted to try and replicate that. So yeah, and these things. I mean, it's nice to hear an album that has has a bit of clarity with the original. But when, for instance, you listen to AC/DC's If You Want Blood, when they do a whole lot of Rosie, they've actually lifted the vocal from the studio version, where he sings "You Can Say She Got a Lot." You listen to the two of them together; they're exactly the same. Right.
They've listed, So I'm sure he's gone. You could say she got a lot. And he's probably flat and raspy. Yeah. But you actually listen to it. I didn't actually realise that. The Zeppelin stuff. Well, the Zeppelin stuff has been butchered to pieces. There's a fantastic website called The Garden Tapes.
All right.
And what this does is, The Garden Tapes talks about Led Zeppelin's gigs at Madison Square Garden, where Song Remains the Same came from. Yeah. And this absolute Zeppelin fanatic has got hold of the bootleg tapes of Zeppelin there, comparing them to, basically the real McCoy. Yeah. Comparing them to Zeppelin at, with the actual official releases. Yeah. And absolute chalk and cheese. Really? Whereby chopping out Robert Plant's diatribe, or whatever it is he's doing in his conversations. But it's quite incredible when you actually sort of like go into it to see what the people did to change. And I get it. We as Beggar, we've got quite a good recording facility. Both Chris, who plays bass, and Noel, who sings, are quite into the recording side of life. Oh, okay. Yeah. The modern day stuff that you can do, So Chris spent a bit of money, bought a Mac, and some DI boxes and bits and pieces, and he'll catch us, And when you listen back to it, there's handling noise in it, whereby things happened. We were at the Burnham Beer Festival, and someone tripped over one of my leads. Because it started chucking it down with rain, so everyone suddenly came inside the tent. Someone trips over the leads, and that basically pulled my guitar, which pulled me. So of course, Mike, you've been there. Yes, we all have, I think. Yeah. So now, if you like, from a tent there would like 5 of us plus 2 people and a dog, all of a sudden we've now got 750 people under the tent because it's chucking it down with rain. So it's now like the bullying culture where everyone's like this. Yeah. And it's and you listen back to some of that sort of stuff, and occasionally, vocally things can happen. Oh, of course. But that's live music. if you analyse, if you actually sort of spend a bit of time going, YouTubing people and seeing the real stuff, you'll see that it isn't always as it seems.
We've got a few comments. Anthony just said on the Pepsi again, brace for the gassy mic in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I've already as my lovely guest here will attest to, I did a huge great belch before we just started.
You did.
I did. Thank you.
Impressive.
Mark Normington says, "Hi guys, both your live streams have helped me greatly through lockdown, so thanks guys." I like Mark. He's lovely. Mark Normington.
Yeah, he's a lovely guy. Very, very talented artist as well, I might add.
I was going to say, very, very good.
Lovely guy. Always comes to the gigs in Southend. More power to you, Mark.
And Mr. T.L. James, one of our listeners from the jolly old US of A. He was just listening. It was his suggestion, actually, to put up the links to all the people's music on my stream underneath. So I've done that, and he's just been listening to your Born to Run cover, and he says it's very solid.
Well, funnily enough, something obviously for the people watching, Mike and I obviously had a little bit of conversation about the content, if you like. I might want to know what I'd been doing, what I've been up to, and what I'm doing now. One of the things that didn't come up in conversation is that I got approached end of last year to do a Bruce Springsteen tribute.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
3 hours every night, mate.
Yeah, the boss. Yeah. And all this came from me doing a dep with a band called Ticket to Ride, who are a Beatles covers band, as you can imagine. They do other sort of stuff.
Oh, hello, Chris Chiddix, by the way. Got Chris Chiddix is there.
Oh, the lovely Chris Chiddix. Hi, Chris. How you doing, fella? Loved your story about everyone chucking the stuff in the back of the van. Let's go to Greece. Absolutely fabulous.
He missed out the best part of the story about being chased by bandits. So we might have to get him in for a round 2.
It's just outrageously good. No. Yeah. So I lost the thread for a minute there, Mike.
That's right. You were talking about how you were approached for your
the Bruce Springsteen
thing.
Yeah. Anyway, so this is going to be essentially a function band. We'll probably only do about sort of 15 gigs a year. But the idea is go away, learn the stuff, get the gear, work on the image. It'll be theatre stuff. So we'll do that. So and I've obviously got the Steve Van Zandt part.
Right.
So we need to find various people and a 6'7" black saxophone player that might prove to be a bit of a challenge.
Indeed. So he's no longer with us, is he now?
No, sadly, Clarence. No, what a fantastic musician, a wonderful human being.
Yeah, that was a real tragedy. So.
Yeah, but thank you ever so much indeed from the USA. We've got a fan, got a guy called Carrie Reinhardt who again tunes into our stuff. Carrie lives in Oklahoma.
Oh, nice.
And he's been a sort of a Facebook friend on. He was playing, I was playing. We just got talking, and we talk once a week, once a fortnight, and it's lovely. I've never met him, and there's every chance I probably never will actually meet him in person. But we do this, which is really nice.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So. Let's get cracking then. Let's go back to the early days of Mr. Mark Kirkman. So when I asked you for a bit of blurb, you sent me basically a complete comprehensive story of almost everything we would talk about in the interview. So that's why I couldn't use it all. So I was like, if I print this, and then we haven't got anything to talk about.
No, fair enough.
So most people from the interviews I've done, when they first start learning an instrument, it's usually either piano, recorder, or something along those lines. What about you?
Yeah, well, there was always music in my house because my dad was a pedal steel player. He played a Hawaiian pedal steel.
All right.
And he actually taught a very, very prominent session musician called Brian Cole. Google him, BJ Cole. He has played with absolutely everybody. Robert Plant, Elton John, the Stranglers, absolutely everybody in his life. He's in his 70s now. He's great. So the old man disappears off to Hawaii and on his travels comes back with a ukulele. Not a guitar, not a bass, but a ukulele. This is the sort of guitar style ukulele, not the sort of round George Formby when I'm cleaning windows type thing. And so this is the accompanying instrument to the Hawaiian pedal steel guitar. So, which is why he brought it back. In a piece of self-interest for himself, he wanted me to accompany him, which I did. And there was a school band, and I approached that. We didn't have too many ukulele players in the school band.
No, I was going to say it's probably quite a rarity, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, indeed. But again, I was welcomed in, and then there was an acoustic guitar laying around, so I went from the My Dog Has Fleas tuning, ding 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 ding, that sort of tuning, to E.G. BDAE on the acoustic. Well, I played both. The King John School Band sort of thing was there. We, like things like Eye Level by the Simon Park Orchestra and that sort of stuff. We were doing that as well as some of the pieces.
Right. And
then,
a
friend of mine who had an older brother called me up out of the blue. He said, my older brother's going to a concert in Southend. Do you want to go? Okay, yeah. Who is it? So it's Deep Purple.
And here the story really begins.
Here the story really begins, yeah. So off I go, and of course I've never been to anything like this. I mean, I've been to see Sandy Shaw down at the Cliffs Pavilion. That's about as good as it's got. Honestly, my parents took me there, and so there we are. And so in we go, Deep Purple, 1972. This is they're on the Machine Head tour, which basically becomes Made in Japan. And I don't know half this stuff. I've heard Black Knight, and I think I've probably heard blimey, what's the song, Hush.
Oh yeah,
that's about that. Because at this point, I'm into sort of glam rock.
Right.
The early glam rock stuff, Slade, Sweet, T-Rex, that kind of thing. And I'm blown away by the whole thing. I'm standing there transfixed. It's one of these sort of Richie Blackmore. There he is up there, strutting across the stage, dry ice, crunching chords, etc., etc. And I thought, that is what I want to do.
Yeah, you and everybody else in that audience.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah, absolutely. And the whole thing just blew me away. As I say, I didn't know half the stuff that they were doing because I hadn't got any of their earlier albums. For me, Blockbuster, Son of My Father by Chicory Tip, that kind of thing. You were sort of listening to, and so that really sort of like was the death knell for the ukulele, and pretty much the acoustic guitar as well. So I managed to get myself an electric guitar, and started learning that. And my football team was good, and one of the guys who did my football team, he played guitar, and so we used to go around there once a week, and he used to show us chord shapes and bits and pieces.
Oh, excellent. Because there's that wonderful thing of back in the day, isn't there? Like, when you discover a band for the first time, and then it's just like opening that floodgate where you can then start going through their back catalogue, and oh my god, there's no feeling quite like it in music, is there? And also,
no.
Like as you say, someone, I think it might have been Chris, was talking about this. This was back in the day, obviously way before the internet, way before anything like that. You had to, learning chords was something that your friends taught you. It was a whole different world back then.
Yeah. Well, my dad, although Dad and I didn't get on very well at all, to be fair, his theory was pretty good. It was pretty sound. You don't teach somebody with something like B.J. Cole and teach him well if you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
As I say, Google him. His list of people that he's worked with, is about as big as Steve Lucas does.
Yeah.
And he would give me a little bit of theory, But my way of learning was that I'd take the balance control, screw it to one side, and I'd have my head stuffed into the speaker, listening to what, say, George Harrison was doing.
Yeah.
And you'd have that sort of thing going on, trying to pick his little licks up, and something like 2 seconds.
It's all right.
I'm not going to do an awful lot of playing because you got far better players than me.
Oh, don't be daft.
I mean that. that sort of riff, that Day Tripper, which obviously people like, say, Brian May. Ooh.
Yeah.
Same riff, isn't it?
Yeah,
in reality, Brian May stole that. There's no question of that. It's the same kind of thing. But I would be there listening, head in the side of the speaker, trying to pick out what George Harrison was doing, what Ritchie Blackmore was doing, and then discovering, Judas Priest. Blimey. Now this sounds fat. Why does the guitar sound so fat? Then I realised, of course, it wasn't one but two guitars playing in harmony.
Yeah.
And you think, wow, listen to that.
What was the first Priest stuff you came across?
The first stuff, probably, cool. Probably Killing Machine, delivering the goods and stuff like that, But I then found Sad Wings, which obviously had things like Island of Domination on it, and Ripper and things like that, which was just incredible. And pardon me, listening to Rob Halford's, 4.5 octave vocal range, which was just incredible how he put that across. But Glenn Tipton and KK Downing, who were the guitarists of Priest. Neither of them playing Priest anymore. Obviously, Glenn Tipton's not very well, but KK's decided to go his own way. Sadly for Glenn, he's struggling. But as an awful lot of our peers, who of course are 10, 15 years older than me, all of a sudden, and then that of course turned me on to Wishbone Ash.
Oh right, there's a name I haven't heard for a while.
Yeah, well, Wishbone Ash, Argus, and things like that, And all of a sudden, this twin guitar thing started to peak a little bit in my head.
Yeah.
And I thought, and I had a little cassette recorder, and I'd play a piece, and then I'd try and find what the harmony was.
Right.
And my dad was a bit too literal with the harmony, He'd say, right, well, this note is harmonised by this note, this note, this note. There was no passing notes.
Right.
As of course, you as a singer would appreciate that, it's not always that thing whereby, it's not as exact.
It's not as robotic. There's always there's always scope and different options and.
Yeah. That's what I was doing. And the guy who was teaching me from the football club, because he played in a little band called Country Brew, and Country Brew were doing 3 or 4 nights a week at the local social clubs or whatever it was, because that's what music was.
Yeah.
In those days, and so here I am at 14, and the phone rings. And it's the guy called Dave Humphreys, lovely guy, and he said, "Hi, Mark." He said, "What are you doing tonight?" And I said, "Oh, nothing." Why? He said, "Would you want to come and do a gig with us?" And I said, "Well, when?" He said, "Now." And I said, "It's true." And I said, "Well, what do I know about gigging?" Because at 14, I certainly had an amp that was about 3 inches square.
Yeah.
Because the bedroom amps or whatever you'd like to call them, they didn't really exist, So what happened was his guitarist had hurt himself at work. His second guitarist had, and so he invited me along, and he said, "I'll come and pick you up and take you there," sort of thing. So he did. He took me along to this gig, which was Tilbury Working Men's Club. And do you ever have these stories, Mike, where you think, "Did I make that up?" When you look back at it.
Yeah, I've got a few that when I look back over them, like, A, how did I get to that situation in the first place, and B, what would have happened if that never happened? Yeah.
Well, this is one of those stories. So we go to the gig. This is Tilbury Working Men's Club. So this is 1974. I'm 14, and obviously completely and utterly, naive, all this sort of stuff. Anyway. we go and do the gig, and the guy said, look, if you don't know what you're doing, just drop out or try and follow the bass or whatever it was. A guy gets shot while we're playing in the toilets.
Oh, nice. Where was this?
Tilbury Working Men's Club.
That was it.
Yeah, Tilbury Working Men's Club, right? Anyway, what had actually happened was there was a turf war going on. Tilbury's a port town.
Yeah.
So you can imagine. So there's drugs, there's prostitution, there's whatever, etc., 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 going on. And this guy, unfortunately, came in for a drink, and members of the rival faction, if you like, were in there, 3 or 4 of them. They saw him going into the toilets and thought, we're never going to get an opportunity like this again, so they shot him.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Charming people.
I know. Well, this was one of those sort of like things where I thought, right, this can't be true. Looking back at it in retrospect, I thought, I must have made that up. And 30 years later, I've got a team squash match, because I do squash as my sport.
Yeah.
I've got a team squash match, and we play over at Tilbury. We play at Tilbury. You have a few beers and a meal afterwards. It's part of the social side of it.
Mm.
And this particular time, the actual catering facility in the actual centre wasn't available. So they said, right, follow me. We're going to go just down the road, if you like, to a little social club. So we go down to this social club. We get in there, and I have this feeling of déjà vu. I've been here before. Now, after playing in there, as you can imagine, I've never been in the place again since.
Yeah.
And I'd completely forgotten about it. And I said, this looks really familiar. And then, of course, it starts to dawn on me what's going on. And so I said to one of the guys, Bill, who was a local, Bill, I've got to ask you this question. You've lived here all your life, haven't you? And he was a bit older than me. I said, do you remember there was a bloke getting shot in here? He said, oh yeah. He said, that was a big thing. He said, that was years ago. And so as I say, so the story goes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Scary old world, isn't it?
Well, it was then, because I can't comment on the rival gangs, but that's what he told me afterwards. He said that's why it happened, because we didn't know at the time. We just played and went.
Well, there was something similar. I think it might have been gang related as well, but this was a lot later. Do you remember? Was it Cartouche in Ipswich? It was the old mill that was a nightclub and everything, and someone got shot in there as well, didn't they? I think that was supposed to be some sort of kind of gang related thing. Yeah.
I mean, you can see why these things happen. I mean, and I suppose it was just an opportunist thing whereby the two warring factions over it were trying to get control of the drugs and the prostitutes and all that sort of stuff that that any port town has. This isn't knocking Tilbury. Yeah. So yeah, that was that. But I must have done all right with the band because they kept me on.
Oh, okay.
I think what had actually happened was that the guy who got injured at work, and again the detail is lost in time. The guy whose place I took, he never came back.
Right.
Whether
he wasn't shot in the toilet in Tilbury, was he?
That's obviously why then. I
suppose,
but,
I feel a conspiracy coming on here.
Well, I had to find a way into the band somehow. Yeah.
That's just life, mate. Bad things happen.
Indeed, yeah. So anyway, I mean, they kept me on, and so we started gigging, and I did some of the gigs. I didn't do all of them because obviously school, and I was involved in an awful lot of things. My school again was a boxing school, so we boxed and we did football and all that sort of stuff, and the usual stuff that people did, and of course studying for my O levels. But my heart really wasn't in that, if I'm honest. I enjoyed it, but doing things like Blue Spanish Eyes by El Martino and Tony Christie, I did what I did for Maria. Yeah, but that was the kind of music that they were playing. David Gates and Bread and all that sort of stuff. A little bit of Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. That and what that did, that gave me a bit of a flavour of chords and bits and pieces.
Yeah.
So really quite liked more interesting chords. I mean, we'll come to that later, I think.
Yeah.
But rather than playing sort of like straightforward major minor seventh sort of thing, and it there were different things going on with that. Although as I've got older, my knowledge of the board and my knowledge of the chords, if you like, is lesser than it was.
Okay. Why would you say that is?
Well, you don't use them so often. You know, they say use it or lose it, don't they?
Yeah, I suppose if you're not playing the kind of thing that would require that.
Yeah. And also, I got an injury on my third finger. My sports squash. One of the juniors that I was coaching smacked me over the hand, accidentally, but he properly smacked me. Yeah, he properly smacked me over the hand.
Ow.
You know, my hand was like the Elephant Man's for a bit.
I love it.
And yeah, and we came to do Brightside in our set, and I couldn't do it.
That's a real asshole of a chord anyway, even if you've got fully working fingers.
It's certainly not easy, yeah. But again, achievable, but I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
My third finger wouldn't go to where it needed to go. We sort of got through it. And I sort of went away and I thought, wow, you know, I said, you know, the blokes, you know, whether the audience noticed it, I don't know, but, you know, the rest of the band certainly noticed it.
Right.
And we went away and I thought, right, okay. So I messed about with it. I had some inquiry about what to do, if you like, with my hand, and you know, surgery, all that sort of stuff. You know, and they sort of said, well, you know, there's a sort of a 60-40 chance it won't make any difference, but it might make it worse.
Yeah, it's not good odds, is it?
Well, no. I mean, you know, and you think to yourself, well, okay, so there's going to be certain things that you can't do.
Yeah.
It's just a shame. It's just, you know, certainly for me, my third finger on my left hand does most of the work.
Right.
You know, whereas you look at, say, Gary Moore, for instance, his second finger was the important finger in his play, and when you listen to his beautiful bends and bits and pieces and his vibrato, which again, you know, is second to none. You know, I mean, you know, if you actually, you know, to actually work out what a guitarist is doing, you've got to sort of ingratiate yourself into their work. Yeah. And listen to their stuff. He was a phenomenal,
absolutely incredible player.
You know,
speaking of which, Mr. T.L. James has said, "What type of guitar is your favourite?" So I'm guessing he means maybe genre, I suppose.
If he means what's my favourite genre, well,
for you to play, your favourite style of playing.
It's got to be rock music, you know, classic rock.
Yeah.
We do that in Beggar. We play, you know, a potpourri of stuff from, I know, you know, the late '60s, if you like, to the modern day. Certainly, I love the '70s, Purple, Zeppelin, Van Halen, stuff like that, of course, which is all the good stuff. Stepping into the '80s, Bon Jovi, sort of early Green Day. You know, what Becky and I did, we did Black Betty, for instance, you know, by Ram Jam.
That is an insane tune to try and do.
Oh yeah. Well, it was one of these things whereby we said we were going to do a sort of a guitar flavoured set.
Yeah. And
on the Thursday, the day before, the person sort of said, "Oh, yeah, what about Black Betty?" And I'd never tried to do it, and I put it together probably very badly, and I thought, I'm never doing that again.
Oh, we've just been corrected by TL. No, he meant what model guitar.
Oh, what model of guitar? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So what is your favourite model of guitar? Is it a PRS by any chance? Yes, it is. Paul Reed Smith, at your service.
Yeah. So, yeah. I've got a couple of them.
What is it you like about them?
Well, they're a hybrid in reality, between probably a Strat and a Les Paul for me. That's what I find them anyway. I used a Les Paul for many years. I bought a black Les Paul Custom in 1979. Still got it. So it's 41 years old.
Nice.
I've worn it to death. All the paint is off from the top of the neck and the bottom of the neck. The paint, there is no paint on it anymore. You know, it's now you can see the neck, the wood of the neck. It's been refretted 3 times.
But that's what a guitar should be. That shows history.
Yeah, it's upstairs. Otherwise I'd show it to you. Because it is a beautiful thing. I've also got this. Hold on a sec.
I'm just hoping he doesn't come back and pull a Mooney or something. But Rebecca says it wasn't bad and it's staying in set. Excellent. Oh, what do we got here? Apart from Mark's crotch.
I'm back. Which is a...
Indeed. Ooh. That's very nice. That is nice.
Yeah, I was dicking about with this earlier on today. I must say, but it needs restringing. So it still plays nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, still plays nice. But yeah. In answer to your question, fella, yeah, PRS for me, and let's just put that there. They do everything I need. You can clean the sound up very, very easily if you need to. You can certainly rock out with it. I haven't touched the pickups on either of them. The silver ones are custom 24 with zebras in it, and the Tiger Stripe one, I suppose that everyone's seen me play for the past 15 years.
Yeah.
The Tiger Stripe, as you can see, it's stock pickups, and a little mention to Simon Pinto. Thank you for the plectrums.
Yeah, I've got some kicking around as well.
I have about 80 of his plectrums, either given or stolen from his studio, if you like, where he lives.
Yeah, I need to steal some more of him as well. Actually, I keep losing mine.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, PRS are the things that I really like, and yeah, they do the job for me. Never let me down. Very, very good. They stay in tune. The intonation remains faithful as well.
Mm.
You can give it quite a bit of abuse with the tremolo arm, although obviously not as much as some of the, not as much as you can with some of the Floyd Roses.
Yeah.
But I'm not overly fussed about those, if I'm honest. The days of these enormous dive bombs, sort of Pantera, Dimebag Darrell things that the noises that guy got out of his guitars just absolutely. Yeah. There's a song, if any of you know it, called Cemetery Gates.
Oh yeah.
Which, it sounds like he's actually sort of dropping the note about 2 octaves. It just goes on and on and on and on and on and on. And you think,
the
what
big squeals at the end as well, the real towards the end.
I can't do that kind of stuff. I'm sure if I bothered to YouTube it and spend some time doing that sort of thing, I could find it, but it's not really what I want to do, and I'm not really there. So
no, so I mean, one of the things you did want to talk about as well is say your approach, because as you said before, you wanted to talk about how you approach guitar and what playing the guitar means to you. Oh, by the way, we've had Rebecca said Black Betty wasn't bad and it's staying in the set apparently. You've been told.
Yeah.
And Sheila's just asked, have you had any interesting injuries from playing the guitar?
Any interesting injuries?
Yeah.
Okay. So first of all, to my missus, thank you very much indeed for that one. So that'll give me a workout. So I'm going to need to go away, if you like, and spend a bit of time perfecting that. But again, there's a lot of guitar harmony in that, so that'll take a bit of interesting guitar interesting injuries. I think most of us get cuts and slashes from the strings being chopped off at the machine heads.
Yeah. So
I've had a few of those where I've either caught myself or caught the singer, and it's almost like cat scratches that run across you. You know, Mike, because you've done it, yeah.
Yes, I know what you mean.
As for guitar-related industries, no, I don't think so. We did a band called Redline, and again we'll come to that. The singer went off the front of the stage. That wasn't very pleasant for him.
I bet. How high was the stage?
Wasn't enormous, but enough. Ruskin Arms.
Oh, okay.
So that one, yeah. I mean, I'm sure you must have been at the Ruskin in your lifetime.
I know.
So,
I've heard so much about it, obviously from all the Iron Maiden stuff, but I've never been there. Is it still there?
I believe they shut it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the Ruskin in reality was a bit of a strange one because it has this enormous reputation for Maiden, but in reality, that wasn't the truth. The Cart and Horses was much more Maiden's stamping ground. Yeah, in Stratford, much more there.
They mentioned that a lot
like,
in their like the early years documentary.
Yeah, the Cart was their sort of their place. The Ruskin, had some cult status because of all the gigs around there that people did. Probably the hardest gig was the Bridge House.
Right.
The Bridge House in Canning Town. That was the one where bands, sort of, tried to get in. It made all sorts of careers, U2 sort of thing. Again, Maiden, etc., etc. The Bridge House, obviously under the Canning Town flyover. Yeah, but I suppose that pulls us forward to the next part of what I've done, what I did. My heart wasn't really in the band, the band of country brew, and so I wanted to play my stuff. I wanted to play rock covers.
Yeah.
And so again, fast forward, did a few bands with some school friends, and there was a band out there called Random Black. Random Black. They'd done some studio work. Interesting. It's interesting how all these little tenuous connections work. The singer had worked with Tim Freeze Green and Webb and Harris, who went on to do Talk Talk.
All right.
With Mark Hollis. And again, they had a massive hit in America. Life is what you make it, and supported Depeche Mode on one of their tours.
Nice.
They did fantastically well, I've got to say. You've got to take their hat off to them. Sadly, again, Mark Hollis. We were talking earlier on, weren't we, about we were talking about people and sometimes that have issues. Sadly, I think Mark Hollis took his own life last year.
I don't know what it. Maybe it's just the sort of artistic people. Perhaps maybe they struggle, but there seems to be a lot of musicians who deal with depression and sadly don't, as you say,
or don't. I don't know whether it's the euphoria when they're doing what they're doing in front of people, and then the bit outside of that doesn't
possibly
live up to that. I mean, I don't know. I mean, you know what it's like when you come home from a gig. If you've had a real belter of a gig, the crowd have been really into it. You come home and you sit down, and I usually put the television on, sort of thing, and go and get myself a beer or something like that, and I sit down, and I can't usually get to bed before about 3:30 in the morning.
Oh God, no! I'm much more of a pussy than that. I'm usually, but I get home within half an hour I'm asleep. I've got no stamina.
But no, it's different for everybody.
Yeah.
But Random Black. We did that. So that this is now the new wave of British heavy metal. Iron Maiden, if you like, have been going for a few years, and they're out there doing their thing, playing all the local venues. The Random Black Boys again, same kind of a thing, looking for looking for gigs, looking for acceptance in the industry.
Yeah.
Didn't have a singer when I came to them. It was essentially, we had bass, drums, me, guitar, and we found a singer. A guy called Mike Lightfoot helped us out, finding a guy called Don Dibbins. We went into the studio to have our demo produced by a fellow called Matthew Fisher, and Matthew Fisher was the keyboard player of Procol Harum. And Matt essentially got hold of us, if you like, and said, okay, so what are you doing, boys? We played him a few bits and pieces, and he was absolutely incredible with us.
Yeah.
And we did a 3-track demo, 2 of which were we had some ideas which we tidied up on, one that was completely written in the studio. Song called Witch Daughter, which probably is that one, and the album stuff. That really put us on the map on the British heavy metal scene, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
That started to get interest. It was played a lot on local radio. I couldn't get John Peel to play it, although I bombarded him with copies of it. And that was interesting, having somebody as famous as him. We were in the studio and he said, "This is really good, boys."
Yeah.
And you're thinking, wow, for someone as famous as him to say that, What a Shade of Pale, he played keyboards and he co-wrote it.
What a tune.
Yeah, I think it's sold 11 million copies to date.
Really? I'm not surprised.
Like you do, yeah. But I mean, it's an old song, isn't it? I'm sure that's helped him with his retirement fund.
I'm sure it has.
Yeah. So we did that, and had a couple of lineup changes. But then a record company called Ebony got interested in us, and the new wave of heavy metal again was starting to die a little bit, but we were still pursuing that, and so we got on this.
Ooh, now that's what an album cover should be.
Yeah. So for those of you who don't know, this is an album or a long player. It plays at 33.5 RPM. Yeah.
Makes cracking frisbees.
They make cracking frisbees. Yeah, but this gets wielded out every now and again by some unscrupulous company to make a bit more money off us, without giving us any royalties. But that's another court case, isn't it? And there's more of that in the story to come anyway.
I'm sure.
So yeah, I mean, so that got us that, yeah. So off we went again. More gigs, more bits and pieces. But the industry again was doing that.
Yeah.
As far as music was going, the industry was changing from the interest, if you like, in heavy metal. I then parted company with Random Black, and I formed Redline with Chris Mann, Pete Morgan, who played with a band called Crucifixion. Crucifixion was signed to Neat.
I was going to say I know the name.
Yes. Oh yeah, they were signed to Neat. They released single after single after single in the Neat record and the label with a thumb. And so into the studio we popped. Did another quick couple of songs, and to try and do that. But by this point, the new romantic scene was all over it.
Yeah.
We were. The new wave of British heavy metal scene had it really. So, the synth bands were taking over, and that's what happens in music.
Yeah.
1976. All of a sudden, the punk revolution changed the way that music was working.
Sort of punk killed prog, didn't it? That was the.
Yeah, and it needed to. Whereas I quite liked listening to Deep Purple, 10-minute songs. Yes. All these kind of bands, Focus, etc., etc.
Mm.
I quite liked a bit of that, but Rick Wakeman's 25-minute keyboard solo followed by Bill Bruford's 25-minute drum solo, and he couldn't carry on really.
No.
And so that was it. Anyway. Part of the story is that this got released last year.
Aww.
Without permission.
You're not having much luck, are you, really, at the moment?
No. But, what tends to happen is the product, if you like, is the music. The new wave of British heavy metal scene has become very, very vibrant.
Yeah.
Very, very vibrant at the moment. I don't know why.
Yeah, there's a big resurgence, isn't there, for some reason?
Yeah, there is. The Random Black stuff, if you like, I'm being courted for that as well. So that may well see the light of day. But I've got all the I've got all the original. Well, cat.
Hey, which one?
What have I done? What have I done to you? Yeah. Yeah. What a lot of the people watching this won't know is that Mike came around my house a couple of weeks ago, and Mike quite likes cats, and we have two. One's called Rossi, and the other's called Cucumber. We allowed the children to name one, and Cucumber for some reason beats up inanimate objects, and she's just trying to beat up my silver PRS.
I was going to say Rossi and Cucumber. You're hoping there's not some weird kind of story that links the two of those together.
I wish I could think of some kind of a link, but
I'm sure there is one. We just don't know about it.
Yeah. And so when people look back at the new wave of British heavy metal, I mean, it was a really vibrant scene. The people who were doing things, if you like, were quite interesting around that time.
Yeah.
Our first gig when the new Random Black was supporting a band called Lionheart, which contained a certain Dennis Stratton, who again, Dennis had just left Iron Maiden.
Yeah.
And he'd formed Lionheart, and I think it was either their first or their second gig. But on the bill was Random Black, Lionheart, and Samson. Samson, yeah, again, Samson, of course, contained a certain Bruce, who, of course, reinvented himself as Bruce Dickinson.
Yeah.
Wonder what happened to him.
I hear he likes flying planes, does a bit of sword fighting, nothing much, just multi-million-pound entrepreneur.
Yeah. Well, he was around a lot. One of the guitarists out of Random Black was a guy called Steve Adams, and Steve cut a single with him in his pre-Samson band called Speed.
All right.
So Bruce was around,
Yeah.
So as again was an awful lot of the people. We met all sorts of people along the way. The Maiden boys are always kicking about. Certain Paul Di'Anio, Maiden's sort of, I suppose, probably seventh singer, but the guy who did the first two albums with them. Yeah. Paul was always around. Unfortunately, Paul's not in very good health either at the moment. Which is a bit sad.
No,
he's not. Last seen confined to a wheelchair.
Shit.
Last feud. But Paul's about 60, my age.
Yeah.
But he's led a hard life, Paul.
Yeah, he's not made it easy on himself, has he?
No. He lived the rock and roll lifestyle, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, so this I don't know, this link sort of thing. So we played this gig. As you can imagine, it's the worst kept secret in the world that Bruce Dickinson is going to Iron Maiden. So you can imagine, can't you, the tension in the dressing room?
Oh
right?
God, yeah. Talk about awkward.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, and again with that, I mean, to be fair, I mean, Den's a nice guy, and obviously does a lot around, Den and Dave and RDB and that sort of stuff. And obviously he's now got Lionheart going on, which is, again, great for him. He does some great podcasts and bits and pieces. But yeah, tenuous links. All those kind of little things. Nice to see it. It's nice to see that an awful lot of the people who played back then are still playing now,
and who are sort of making the most of the resurgence and sort of get that second wind.
And so, I mean, Random Black drummer John Blanford. We always thought that we'd lose John because John was phenomenal.
Yeah.
We thought that someone like the Mission or the Sisters of Mercy or the Cult would poach him. And you wouldn't have blamed him for doing that if they had, because John was good. John was a complete acolyte of John Bonham.
Oh, nice.
And you listen to some of the stuff that we did. He was there. It's such a shame that the Metal Warriors thing, the drum sound on that is very poor. But that was the insistence on the producer us using the house kit. But what John's done is he emigrated to Canada and then to America, and he got into the tribute scene early because the Americans were doing that.
Right.
I mean, because obviously the tribute scene now, the band tribute scene is enormous, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it's huge.
I mean, obviously, probably the best example of that probably is the Aussie Pink Floyd, isn't it?
Yeah, they're massive. I mean, I've seen quite a few tributes, and I mean, they, you know, there's some like incredible Queen tributes out there, and you know, they are some, as you say, the Aussie Pink Floyd one, almost probably more popular and sort of when it comes to gigging and selling places out now than the original Floyd.
They, you know, you look at the, you know, where the places that Aussie Floyd are playing. You know, I mean, you know, the Illegal Eagles was another band, you know, that had those kind of things. You know, just incredible, really. So yeah, I mean, interesting to see it. You know, so for me, I could see that the new wave of British heavy metal thing was running out of sand. You know, one of the guitarists who played in Random Black Ham was a guy called Ray Frost, and Frosty carried on playing music. He teamed up with the Rubettes and Herman's Hermits of late, and he's rediscovered himself as a country singer.
Wow.
He didn't sing in Random Black at all, and he had a number 6 in Australia. You know, sort of from the downloads and bits and pieces.
That's not bad going, is it?
I know. Yeah, we went out to see him a couple of years ago, and he's relocated to Spain, and he's doing great.
Excellent.
So yeah. So I suppose so for me then, you know, in between Redline finishing and I mean, I sort of stopped for a bit. I mean, I helped a mate out with some cruise ship work, you know, just Harry's Hook on and stuff like that, you know, when he wasn't around. But the most boring gigs ever, because you're trapped on the thing and you can't get off.
It sounds like hell on toast to me, to be honest.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's why I didn't do it very much, sort of thing, you know. And again, you know, another thing came up. A mate of mine, Bob Watkins, you know, talked about an ABBA tribute, and we got together and we did some stuff there. That was pretty awful. But in the early days of trying to do these kind of things,
right?
But you know, I'm not talking about the sophisticated way that people do things now.
Yeah.
You know, but again, that didn't really work. And I was teaching, and one of the guys I was teaching, he had some trophies. You know, I was going around his parents' house, you know, and he's got these trophies on the wall. You know, he's won Butlin's Minehead karaoke competition, so some pretty big, you know, big things, you know, whereby you know, people go along to do. And he said, you know, I'm looking to do a band sort of thing, and he'd got in touch with a couple of other people, and thus Outcry was born.
Ah.
Yeah, so and Outcry again, you know, we did the usual bits and pieces with that, you know, Valentine, Cauliflower, those kind of venues.
Yeah.
And you know, that was good because it, again, you know, old friends playing in that. We then lost the vocalist out of Outcry, and the vocalist from Beggar had lost his band.
I see something happening here.
Yeah.
I see destiny playing a hand.
Yeah. I mean, Outcry was good, you know. I mean, we did some bits and pieces, you know. I did these.
Outcry in rock. Nice.
Yeah.
Live at the Thurrock Beer Festival.
Yeah. You know, the beer festival people recorded the thing for us. We listened to it and we thought, actually, this isn't bad. So we put it together. Sold a few at shows like you do.
Yeah.
And then the Beggar thing sort of like turned up about 20 years ago. So that's been quite interesting to do.
How many gigs with Beggar did you say you've done? Just a couple, isn't it?
I reckon I've done in excess of 2,000.
Bloody hell.
Not all with Beggar, but well, Martin sang with Beggar for 8 years, and he said, I've kept a note of every gig we did. He said, and in 8 years we did 504 gigs.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah,
let's be honest.
And he said, and the thing was, I mean, because you know, obviously you don't want a good member of the band to leave.
No.
Do you? You know, And he said, Mark, this is the truth. I've done 504 gigs in 8 years. I'd like my life back a little bit, if that's all right.
Fair point.
Yeah. And what's happened, of course, is, Mike, it's changed. You know, you'd be out. You know, I found an old set list from a gig we did at the Eastern Monk in Houndsditch on a Thursday night.
Wow.
You know,
on a school
sort of,
night?
Oh, yeah. But you know, if your band wasn't out 4 nights a week, there was something wrong with you.
The only time we've ever done 4 nights, usually an Easter weekend.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't like that. It used to be that, you know, there would be work to do.
Yeah.
You know, you could go out and do, and you could find work. But, you know, this one, you know, so we've done the East, you know, we've you know, think about all the issues you'd have with that now. You'd have, say, for instance, the parking issues. Parking in Houndsditch must be. I mean, I wouldn't even. I wouldn't even want to think about it. You'd probably end up paying the congestion charge as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know. And I was having a chat with Martin, you know, the singer who did it with us, and he said, "I don't think I made it into work the following day." I said, "I was not surprised. You know, you were actually only round the corner from where you were working."
Yeah.
Because he was working in the city as well, so you had to go home, get some sleep, get back on a train, and get back up to London. I don't think I made it into work either, to be fair. Yeah. So they were the days, you know, and you know we did a sort of a 2 1-hour sets, and I think we ended up doing some more, and the governor gave us some more money because the people weren't going home.
That was glory days. Instead of asking you to play longer for nothing extra.
Yeah, you know, and we all have that. Generally speaking, you know, my lot don't tend to get too many problems in that department. From time to time, of course, you know,
Yeah.
I won't lie. I don't remember the last time we were chalked off.
No.
It's been a long time since we got chalked off. But then again, we've got good relationships with the people that we work with.
Yeah.
And also, you know, if someone comes out of the blue, I tend to think about it, and I think, well, okay, so this place is offering us 4 gigs. Okay, they seem to be all right. The money's right. I don't really know the venue. Other people aren't playing there. So what's going to happen there? Are they going to cancel us out? And we turn down gigs on the day, you know? You try, you see, to actually do these things.
So your frame rate isn't quick enough. You've got to do it in real slow motion. Like, pull it to there, contemplate a little while.
Yeah, that's it. We don't really go in for merchandise at all.
That's better. There we go.
Yeah, so yeah, so yeah, Beggar. Generally speaking, has been good. ReMark started off as a duo. Becky, I was working with an Adele tribute artist, and anyway, cut a long story short, we fell out. You know, like you do sometimes.
Yes.
And I still had some gigs to fulfil. I met Becky at a jam night in Epping, of all things, you know. Someone put an ECC post up saying guitarist wanted for that. I said, yeah, I'll do it. And they actually came back and said, oh, you got someone now. I said, okay. I said, if things change, let me know. So at 7:15.
Oh.
Yeah, 7:15. Yeah, what time can you be here? What time do you need me there? 8:30. So, yeah.
Right, let me just scrub my balls and I'll be there.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, but you know, those kind of things, though, Mike. You know, you must have come across those things all your life.
Yeah, you do. You just get some very just random out of the blue, but it's always not only amusing, but it's always quite cool onto what sometimes they lead. As for you, considering that you are, is that how you two got together?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So I turn up at the gig. I meet a fella called Chris Amos was running it, and Chris was a guy that played an awful lot around the Harlow area. They did a band called Rock the Monkey.
All right.
And Rock the Monkey again had been doing 5, 6, 7 gigs a week, all over the place. Done a bit in Canada, Ireland, etc., etc. Been on telly, covers band. I mean, Martin Robson, who sings with me, he's now a very, very famous guy out in Canada. I think he does a band called Ten Little Engines, but they play to stadiums out there.
Wow.
You know, he's done really, really well for himself. Yeah. Anyway, so get in. You know, we talked on the way. So I'm on the phone on the way there, sort of thing, with the phone on speaker. Honest officer, right? And said, right, okay, so you better tell me, you know, what you do. So I've got a bit of an idea to actually sort of mentally prepare, rather than me strap it all on, sort of thing. And you say, okay, you know, do you know "Time Is on Your Side" by the Rolling Stones? And I go, no. Right. Do you know "Eye of the Tiger" by Survivor? I might have played it once. You know, those conversations. But you know, stories. Well, similar sort of thing, Mike. Back in the pre-internet, pre-computer, pre-anything days of the 80s, I get a phone call saying that there's a band, if you like, 4-piece band. They've been let down by the guitarist for a private party at the Beetroot Club in London.
Mm.
Now, you know, the Beetroot Club again had its notoriety, if you like, for being Spandau Ballet's sort of home turf and all that sort of stuff, you know.
Right.
And there was an 18th birthday party which this fella had hired out for his daughter. You know, so obviously the geese was quite well heeled to be able to hire a club out like that, you know, sort of as a private party. So essentially they said, look, it's all rock covers, you'll know them all, Caroline, All Right Now, all that, you know, the usual sort of stuff. You know? Yeah, the standards. So I said, right, okay, so what time do you need me there? And they said, well, you know, when you get here, we'll be starting.
Okay.
You know, one of those. So bear in mind, so this is pre-internet, pre-mobile phone, etc., etc., etc. So I've chucked my marshals in the back of the car, driven up there, managed to find a parking space miraculously quite close.
Good Lord.
Managed to get, I know, you know, incredible. You know, got me stuff. Took it down the stairs, met the band briefly. That I, again, you know, and you know, this, you know, we were on £2,000 in 1985 or whatever it was. So £500 each.
That's pretty impressive for back then.
Oh yeah. Well, you know, so as I say, so
it's pretty good for now, to be honest.
Well, you know, private party, private work, etc., etc. Yeah, of course. So they've written a set out for me. I get set up, you know. Oh, I'm Dave, I'm Pete, I'm Steve, sort of thing. You know, you've arrived at a gig. You don't know anybody there, do you? You know, you know that stuff. So, first song, he said, you know, he said, I like to warm up, sort of thing, and All Right Now's my song to, you know, go. So, as you know, the song starts off with drums and guitar, yeah.
Yeah.
So look at this, you know, 1, 2, 3, down, ba-dam, down. You know the song, yeah. So, and I can see the singer looking at me odd.
Right.
And I'm looking across, and you know the old, the old joke. You know, how can you tell when the singer's outside your door? You know, because see, he doesn't know when to come in, and he can't find the key, right?
Boom! Take that.
Right. You know, yeah. You know, I mean, yeah. It's an old joke, and sort of thing. So anyway,
so true. So, and I'm a singer, so I know.
He can't find the key, so because it's just me and the drums, yeah. This is a 4-piece band, yeah, and he can't find the key. He's all over the place. Then the bass player comes in, and he can't find the key either. So it's in A. He comes over. No, it ain't. Yes, it fucking is. Not the way we play it.
Oh, I hate that. Is a bugbear and a half.
Right. So I'm playing, right? And of course it sounds like this horrible cacophony of sound, as you can imagine, can't you? And so I want to tell me what fucking key it's in then. F.
Was it Barry White singing it or something?
Well, the singer sings it in F. And so I'm now frantically adjusting what I'm doing.
Oh,
you know?
God.
So you know what it's like. It's not like you've got to go away and learn it. You're doing it on the fly. So I've now taken it down. You know, sort of
5 semitones.
Yeah, exactly. You know, so No, no. So all right, I'm sort of all right in sort of doing that because I can sort of I can fumble my way around it. So, in my haste, you see, and in the speed that we had to put the gig together, I haven't asked the old question: do you play everything in standard key for 40? And they don't. They play everything to suit the singer's voice. So,
can we just have a little message to singers out there? If you can't sing a song in its key, discuss it with the band first, because chances are that song was written, the guitar riffs and everything that go along with it were probably suited for that particular key. When you ask a singer, or when a singer tells you to play it in a different key, tell them to fuck off, or don't sing it. Thank you. Carry on.
Yeah. No, well, absolutely. I mean, it's funny. We in Beggar did. Actually, no, we in Outcry. We did the song "Don't Break My Heart Again" by
Whitesnake.
Yeah, Whitesnake, which we do put into this day. If we play in a classic rock gig, we put it in. And for some reason, best known to us, we did it in C back in the day,
right,
as opposed to D. So basically a tone down.
Yeah.
And it almost used to be like someone was sandpapering the back of my head. That's the only way I can put it. That's what it actually felt like. Someone was doing that to me, right? If you've got an ear for key, which most musicians have,
yeah,
right, the one thing you don't, you can tell. If you're worth your salt, you can tell. And yeah, it's a bit like if there's two radios on in the house.
Yeah.
That I find that painful.
Yeah, you can generally get away with maybe playing, like for example, if you're playing standard or if you're playing flat, you've gone down a semitone. But when people start really chopping keys around on really classic songs,
yeah,
they
sound wrong.
Yeah, it just sounds shocking.
Yeah. So we finished that, and I'm embarrassed and angry at the same time, as you would imagine. So I said, right, okay. So we're playing Caroline as the second song. Any particular key we're playing that in?
H.
D. Should be an F. So I said, okay. So the first one was down 2 tones. This one's down 1.5 tones. I said, is there any consistency? So I said to the bass player, is there any consistency to how you play the songs, so I can tune my guitar down so that I don't look like a total spanner when we're playing? So he says, no. So I said, right. So let me get this right. Are there any songs you actually play in the right? In the right? He said, no. I said, okay. So you'd better tell me then before we start the songs off what the keys are, if that's all right with you. So we get through the first set. As you can imagine, a complete pile of poo.
Yeah.
Songs that have open strings in them, sort of thing. I've now got to find a way to get around them. Yeah. And as I say, I'm feeling embarrassed because I do this. So we come off the set. I grab hold of the bass player and I drag him into one of their back rooms. I said, right, write the fucking keys down if you don't mind, so that you give me half a chance. So needless to say, the band have got the arse with me because I can't suddenly conjure up their guitarist's thing, and he's probably got 5 guitars, probably tuned differently to help him. I've turned up with 2 Les Pauls. So we get through, Mike. We get through it, and to be fair, there's no conversation, quite a bit of growling going on, so throughout the thing. And I'm thinking, I'm sure the people can sort of see this, but they seem to be having a good time, dancing away, doing, having a bit of fun. So we finish, and I put my guitar and I sort of sit down for 5 minutes, and then this fella comes up to me. And he turns out that the girl's 18th birthday party, he's her uncle. And he said, whoever the guy was, let's call him Costas for want of a better way. He said, Costas, he said, he's the girl's father. He wants to see you see you over here. So we go in and he takes me into a back room. And I think, I'm going to get a right kicking now. Really, I really think I'm going to get a kicking now, and I'll probably deserve it. And so he says something to me in Greek because he can't speak English, and the uncle said, Costas has said, "Is that right? You stood in?" He said, "Because you know for the last minute," and so I'm about to say, "Yeah, but I'm really sorry," and the guy, the father is a huge, great big man, sort of, and he's drenched in sweat, and he comes up to me, and he bear hugs me, and he gives me a big kiss, and he said, Costa said, "You've saved the evening."
Aww.
He said, "Yeah, right," and he gives me 500 quid
Extra. Jesus Christ, man.
So anyway, I've trousered this money because I think to myself, well, if that's my wages tonight, that's fine. But if it's extra, they ain't having none of it.
No, too bloody right.
No, and so anyway, and they paid me out, sort of thing. It's fair to say I didn't work with them again.
I can't imagine why. It sounded like it was an absolute treat.
No, not really. But it's when you actually consider, you were talking earlier on about how people start off and the way that people got on. We didn't have YouTube. We didn't have people who were quite good, with the tutorials. I mean, I've had a look at them. Sometimes, I don't teach so much these days, but when I used to be teaching a bit more, I retired at 50, and I had about 17 students coming to me a month.
Wow.
Which was quite nice. Quite nice. People that wanted to learn how to play a little bit like Eric Clapton or this or that.
Yeah.
No, no notable students, just a fairly middle stream of people.
So we've had a couple of questions very quickly because
yeah.
Probably what we'll do, we'll get a couple of questions and then we'll go on to really wanting to get to that, what you were talking about earlier about your style of playing and how you like to approach guitar. Glenn Adams, we've heard about probably your least favourite gig, even though it had a very splendid outcome. What has been your favourite gig that you've ever played?
Wow, that's an interesting question. Wow.
The one that springs to mind now, the first one. Go.
I think probably the favourite one was the one that I did with ReMark at the festival in Southend. That was quite a session. You had a conglomerate of Big Country and Simple Minds on the bill. You had Heaven 17 on the bill.
Oh wow!
And reputed 5,000 people.
Nice.
And the reason we were on early, so I mean again it wasn't as if we had 5,000 people sort of like there, because people are milling around. But it was nice to actually play a gig whereby you actually had the space to move around again, and you could actually crank the amps up a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a sort of a common picture of me and one of the gigs, I think probably Ruskin Arms or somewhere like that. I've got 4 Marshall cabs and 4 Marshall heads going.
Right.
If you're
going to do it properly.
Well, yeah, but that's what you did in the day.
Yeah.
We were playing those kind of, that kind of loud. And you had side fills and you had monitors and all that sort of stuff. And we didn't have ear protection, for instance, whereas today, obviously, the in-ear monitoring system has saved many a career.
Yeah.
I suppose, this thing with not Bon Scott, the other fella.
Brian Johnson.
Yeah, BJ, yeah. I mean, he's struggling a little bit with his ears, probably from standing in front of Malcolm and Angus's Marshall stacks.
Well, of everything, just the volume on stage during a rock concert is so loud.
When you think about that kind of a thing, how loud, some people play. And I look back at it and I think how loud that I used to play, and it was insane, really. Incredibly loud, and you'd almost have a bit of a battle with the other guitarist. You'd sound check with the middle off or something like that, and then when you came on, you said, "Oh, put the middle back on," and you put it on, of course, and that again would actually sort of like raise your volume by X, which of course was not the right thing to do. You think, well, that's just silly, I'm much more interested in the overall sound of the band now.
Yeah.
The overall sound of the band, of course, is everything, because you want people to actually hear a good, hear a good noise.
That's experience, though, isn't it?
Oh yeah, the exuberance of youth. Me behaving like an arrogant idiot. As you tended to be. I mean, back in the day. I mean, if you can see this, you see that?
Just about. You're kind of glowing like you've been caught in the headlights, but
Okay, all right, okay. It's difficult.
we can see it. We can get the idea. Yeah.
You get the idea. But back in the day, that's me there. With as much martial amplification as you want. But very, 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 very noisy. But that's what we did. You look at any band back in the day. Every band, had a ubiquitous Marshall stack.
Yeah. Well, that was just the done thing, wasn't it?
Yeah. Whereas now, I play with a combination. I've got a really, really nice Cornford Roadhouse 50, which is a lovely sounding valve combo. It's nice, but it's bloody heavy.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the best amps tend to be.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's proper heavy, and
Yeah.
I had a Marshall Mo 4 set up for a while, which again I bought for a metal project, but then obviously used, and the actual speaker cabinet, the 412, was insane. And there was a couple of times when I was actually putting it in the car, and I thought, I'm going to do myself a damage here. One day my back's going to go.
Yeah.
So just for practicality, I got rid of it. In the same way that my Black Les Paul was quite a heavy guitar.
Oh yeah.
When I pick it up
over a whole night and several gigs, that really takes its toll.
Yeah. Well, I'm 60 years old now. I'm not 20.
Yeah.
So you tend to sort of sacrifice a little bit of that kind of massive gear for something that's a bit more comfy. For want of a better way of putting it.
Too right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I tend to. I've got a Marshall 212, and I've got a various bunch of heads that I use now with that. Got a nice Black Star head, HHD100. I've got a couple of Marshalls. I've got an old Marshall head, a 1971 head, which I believe at one point used to belong to Richie Blackmore. So that's going to be, but that's an old one. Yes, yeah, so it's an old Super Tremolo, which I need to dig out and have a little bit of a play with.
Nice.
I bought a Marshall combo, just a 11200 watt combo, and I thought, save me lugging all my gear to practices, I'll just take that.
Yeah.
Saw it advertised in a practice room for 70 quid.
Can't go wrong.
Well, ReMark have done nearly 300 gigs with it.
That's pretty good going.
Right, ReMark have done nearly 300 gigs with it. All the small gigs that Beggar do, Fatling and Firkin is an example. You've got a limited amount of space on the stage. I like doing the Fatling. I quite like the crowd sort of thing there. It's all quite compact. Pardon me, that beer is gassy. And I've probably done another 150. So that amplifier, 450 gigs plus all the practicing and all the stuff. Again, it's paid for itself.
70 quid well spent.
Yeah, I mean, it's not Marshall's finest hour. It's a valve state, but it does the job.
Yeah.
We know the job that's necessary. I mean, you go to see some of the guitarists of notoriety. I mean, for instance, take Phil Hilborn as an example. Phil, lovely guy. I've known Phil forever. And Phil will take his Marshalls out, and he always sounds fantastic. I mean, he usually uses, two 412s, 2 heads, whatever it is, sort of thing. He's not a big pedal user. He plays the PRS, fabulous player, and he sounds great. But I think to myself, I don't envy that.
No, it sounds like a lot of work.
Well, don't get me wrong, I envy his playing. Jamie Humphries, again, you know, another guy, loads and loads of bits and pieces, played with Expose and other people. And again, Jamie obviously is a much fated guitarist. You know, worked with Brian May and all sorts of people. Again, every time you go and see him, his tone is fantastic. Yeah. Again, the late great Mike Caswell. You know, obviously he was Jarvis guitarist.
Yeah.
Who sadly, if you like, isn't with us anymore. You know, again, you used quite a bit of gear, but you know, Mike for me, his touch and his feel and his tone was absolutely fabulous.
Yeah.
You know, and yeah, I get it, but then again, I suppose that's the difference. They're professional musicians, and I'm not.
It depends. There's people who've got very simple setups who, you know, there is a thing to be said that the tone is in the fingers, and there are players who, with just real basic setups, can make a guitar absolutely sing. So
yeah.
Speaking of which, of guitar playing, grab your guitar. Come on, get hold of it.
Oh dear. Okay. Yeah. Well, the thing we were talking about earlier on, if you like, was that I quite liked the way that with the guitar. Yeah, you know, the power chord thing, you know, that people were sort of there. Well, that sort of stuff, you know. I mean, for me, the interesting thing after doing all these bits and pieces with the country brew people was seeing, you know, different chords and different structure, you know, and I was actually very, very interested in that, and I thought, well, how could I sort of like get it into my playing so that you know, I mean, just because, you know, like.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's C dim, which I thought nice chord, you know. So I was dicking about on a piano, you know. I can't play the piano, but I was just, you know, just sort of, you know, giving it a bit of a fingering, you know, like you do, sort of thing. And I thought, right, okay, so what's C dim scale? That kind of da da da.
Yeah.
And what C dim is, if you like, it's tone, half a tone, tone, half a tone, tone, half a tone. And that chord, you know, that I played there, which is, you know, sort of essentially, you know, that. I thought, right, so how can I get things like that into my playing? Yeah, nice. So what I did was, after messing about with the piano, I found a way of actually sort of putting it into like a solo sort of thing. So as a backing. Which again sounds pretty normal as a sort of a rock, as a sort of a rock set of chords, yeah.
Yeah.
Which it does, you know. But over that gives you the opportunity to add all sorts of bits and pieces into it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to play little bits and pieces of the solo, and then I'm actually going to play you the finished recorded output of it, which I did back in the day, showing you how you can actually use that. You know. So that. So basically, same pattern, but so that way I've actually taken tone, half tone, tone, half a tone, tone, half a tone. Obvious triad, etc., etc., and on it runs. Behind that, then, so you think to yourself, right, okay, so rather than, you know, just playing in that little piece there, you can see I actually advanced up all the way from one end to the other end.
Yeah.
So okay, so we're there. So what about the actual chord of C? So you've got a triad there, yeah. So you got another little triad there.
Yeah.
So, and that way, so what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to find the C all the time, because there's lots and lots of C's all over the board.
Yeah.
I mean, again, this sounds a bit disjointed, of course, because it is, you know, at the moment. then advancing towards it, then trying to finish the solo off with something a bit more interesting, a bit or trying to sort of show something along those lines, so. Something along those lines. So all of that is over that particular backing, which runs on, which basically all stems from that interest, if you like, of that particular little chord that I've all over that. So, so you've got diminished triads, finding those little. In that, that sort of thing. So that's the idea. So what I'll do, I'll play it, and we'll see if we can actually get it, and I'll give you an idea what I meant by the whole thing.
Cool. The sound is fluctuating a little bit, but just keep going with it anyway.
Yeah. We'll see how we go. So let's see. So we had.
Oh, your sound is cutting out. Ah.
Try it.
Nice.
Yeah, you sort of get the idea.
Yeah, no, we could hear. So we heard parts of it. At times the audio dropped, but no, you could definitely hear what you were talking about and sort of the ideas involved. Definitely.
Yeah, but because for me, playing the guitar is a beautiful instrument. Let's get back a little bit, and you can spend hours at a time just messing about with different chords rather than just playing the same sort of things. Another friend of mine, a guy called Trevor Pattenden, he sent me a note and he sort of said to me, "Why don't you put in your ReMark set some Gary Moore, some classic Gary Moore?" And the first thing I suppose everyone thinks about with Gary Moore is Parisian Walkways, yeah.
Yeah. Or Still Got the Blues, anything around those areas.
Or Still Got the Blues, yeah. I mean, I'm an older guy, sort of thing, so for me, Parisian again is one of those songs that if you want to play it, you need a Les Paul for starters. For me, but so I thought to myself, well, I'll have a listen to it because I haven't played it for forever. But I suddenly thought, right, I seem to remember the chord work behind that was beautiful. Behind Parisian, I mean, everyone knows that little that little bit of piece, and obviously I've just done that on a clean channel, but the actual chord work behind it goes something like this. Aha! Now, to me, that's far more interesting.
Yeah, it's really nice dynamics in that with those kind of chords.
It's beautiful for me. Sort of doing that. And people do different. People do different things. I mean, evocative.
but it's classic, isn't it? That's the thing. As soon as you hear that, it's so unique.
I mean, Mike, how about this then? Riding along a automobile.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
But, you know, those... I mean, you think about that. I'm not sure what that is. That's pretty D-augmented plus 5 flattened 11th, that chord. But, you know, this is Chuck Berry from wherever he is, you know, sort of 1954.
Yeah.
Where he's at the... he's at the start of all this.
Yeah.
But you hear that chord, instantly you've gone, I know that.
Yeah.
You?
No, it's definitely having that something unique and interesting and different, especially at the start of a song, is a sort of a real imprint, especially in our brains when it comes to just going, yeah, there it is. I know that song straight away.
Yeah. It does have to be. Yeah, exactly. You know, those kind of little things. You know, one of the things I do an 80s dep with Back to the 80s, and I had to go away and learn some stuff there. And one of the things that I did there was Bowie's Let's Dance.
I was just about to say, I reckon that would, yeah.
I can't for the life of me remember the chord progression in that. I really can't. But again, Nile Rodgers was the guitarist who actually did all the chord work in that, as opposed, because everyone knows the Let's Dance album for the tracks that Stevie Ray Vaughan, the late great again Stevie Ray Vaughan, put down some lead on that. But Nile Rodgers was the guy who was doing all that sort of that different chord sort of stuff.
Yeah, he was like the linchpin.
Yeah,
all of that.
That's it. Those kind of chords.
Yeah.
And I cannot remember the chord progression. I'm not going to make myself look a burp by trying to do it. But he wanted it so that there was no jangling going on. So basically he said,
David,
right, it's an A sharp.
You can't put the jangling down.
So A sharp, not A or G, A sharp.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, but again, that was what he decided to do. I'll do that. I'll do that differently. So I'm not going to have all this stuff going on. And if you actually listen to it, I mean, it's a beautiful piece of playing. But I mean, I was actually talking to the guy from Back to the 80s. When I actually went down to do the first gig, they do some quite big. Sort of Skegness and places like that,
Yeah.
And I've done some interesting work with them. And I said to him, I love Nile Rodgers playing on that. And he said, well, it was Stevie Ray Vaughan. I said, well, no, it wasn't. It was Nile Rodgers. He did all the chords. I said, listen to any Chic song.
Yeah.
And he said, oh, yeah, you're right. And because it's a common misnomer, isn't it? Really, that our old mate sort of thing, sort of Stevie Ray Vaughan played the guitar. He didn't play all the guitars on it. He just played the lead break.
Yeah.
Bowie being very, very famous for getting top quality musicians to come and play with him.
It's all right for some, isn't it?
If you've got the name,
Yeah.
I mean,
absolutely.
Look at Michael Jackson's canon of players.
Oh God, yeah, it's ridiculously impressive. The same as someone like James Brown, as well.
Yeah.
If you've got that name, you can pull in the best of the best.
Yeah, and probably not pay them anything.
Yeah, fire them after one show because they missed your arse wiggle or something and missed a prompt.
But these people. I mean, Steve Lukather. I mean, love Steve Lukather's playing. Very, 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 very smooth, if you like. And I hate to use the word considered, but it probably is. It's sat down and worked out.
I would agree with that.
He can. There's a man who can play.
Yeah, and who can compose.
Yeah. I mean, probably my favourite solo of all time is by the band Europe.
Final Countdown?
No.
Oh, which one?
No. Superstitious.
Ah, great tune.
If you
That's
think
a
about it,
beautiful solo. That's a beautiful solo.
yeah. So John Norum, the guitarist who played on the first album, he'd gone by then, and they brought in a guy called Key Marcello, and Key was a beautiful player, and it's just it's all sort of singy melody, you know? And it's quite beautiful, you know. And I mean, because I love melody and counter melody. Occasionally, I actually quite like it when the actual when the phrase doesn't appear to be finished.
Yeah, it leaves you in suspense.
Do you know like when you have a sort of thing and you think that it should be going to the next note.
Yeah.
It's right because it's within the scale and the composition, you know. And don't get me wrong, I'm not utterly brilliant on solo and scale and all that sort of stuff, you know. I'm not, but I've had a bit of a work out of stuff, and I've got a good idea of what I should be doing, you know, just over. But I mean, you know that.
Yeah, just throw in something nice and quirky just to make it interesting.
Yeah, because in reality you think, right, that should, you know, so it should be going to the E, but in actual fact you stop it there, you know.
Yeah, it's the cheekiness that makes a guitar interesting.
Yeah, or you know, if you're doing, you know, sort of like something Malmsteenish over, you know, harmonic minor sort of thing.
Yeah.
You know, or that kind of a thing, you know. I mean, obviously he is an Uber player who ridiculous standard.
Oh God, yes.
And has been since he was about 13, you know.
He just popped out of the womb playing like that, I think.
Yeah. I must admit I was lucky enough to see him before he had his car accident.
Oh right.
And which essentially made a difference to his right hand, but his left hand is so good.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, he's still got round doing what he's doing, but an incredible talent. I mean, again, we got hold of a lot of his stuff before he sort of like came onto the market, for want of a better way of putting it. You know, as a 14-year-old, you know, the tapes are out there now, but they weren't then.
Yeah.
And you hear him playing, you know, Black Star, you know, and things like that. And you think, you know, where did you get that from?
God, yeah. Well, Ritchie Blackmore and classical, I think, is it's two main influences.
Yeah, Nicoco Paganini sort of thing, you know, and he would work out what the classical piano players were doing.
Yeah.
And he would be thinking, right, okay. I sort of don't see the Blackmore thing too much, if I'm honest. I mean, he cites Blackmore as being a massive influence, but I look at it and I think to myself, well, Blackmore's nowhere near as technically gifted as that.
But you can still have from the ideas that the person has, and you look at, for example, Dimebag Darrell. His hero of all time was Ace Frehley, and you would see him standing in the crowd at a Kiss concert, just in utter awe of Ace. Now we all know that Dimebag was infinitely better than Ace Frehley, but it still had that place in his heart. Yeah,
absolutely. In the same way that Blackmore will always do that for me.
Yeah.
And you know, I don't think I play anything like him. You know, he just inspired me. He, you know, essentially, you know, it was like the Blue Touch vapor.
Yeah. And
let's see what we can do. He really did get me going, you know, with that. And I thought, well, wow, you know, I mean, I'm not a great fan of things like Smoke on the Water. I mean, I play it, but you know, to me, it's been done to death. You know, same as Stairway by Zeppelin. You know, if I never hear it again, it'll be too soon. You know?
Yeah, I understand that.
I just don't, you know, because you know, unquestionably, it's a great song. You know, and you know, Zeppelin were dogged by this plagiarism thing, you know, because they'd stolen stuff from Willie Dixon and Blind Lemon Mahoney and all these other sort of old blues, travelling riverside blues and things like that,
Yeah.
Gallows Pole and all that sort of stuff, and lovely to hear. I mean, Zeppelin were great, but I suppose it's all been done before in one guy's sort of shape, I think,
Yeah.
and I suppose when I listened back to some of the stuff that I was writing back in the day, and I think there's a very, very Judas Priest, Wishbone Ash Iron Maiden influence to it all. But I think we said, well, obviously the idea germinated from somewhere.
Oh, of course.
And I think, yeah, well, that's my style. And, obviously Eddie Van Halen changed the world, didn't he, when he came along?
Yeah.
And most guitarists of some description, do that, don't they?
Yeah.
Or some kind.
Oh God, yeah.
Some kind of fiddly. What's its
Yes.
bass players do it,
Yeah.
And it's nice to see. In the same way that Hendrix changed the way that the guitar was played, he brought it. But Hendrix again, what was Hendrix doing? He was oh God, he was playing in all the little chittling bands sort of thing. Wasn't he one of your mates' sidemen, Little Richard? In his time?
Yes, he was. Yeah, Little Richard.
So again, he would have been playing all those sort of interesting sort of chords and bits and pieces, which is why that sort of what they call
Oh yeah. The Purple Haze chord.
They called it the Hendrix chord. That kind of thing, yeah. They called it a Hendrix chord. But again, he popularised an awful lot of those things, and he always seemed to be in the studio recording things.
Yeah, and all trying new things out.
In his short career as a player, unfortunately, as you know, a member of the 27 Club,
Yeah. Yeah, too many good people went down in that club.
Yeah, I mean, I must admit, looking on the grunge scene, you've got what's his face, Kurt Cobain, and of course,
you had Lane Staley, Kurt Cobain. You had, didn't the guy from Blind Melon as well?
I think you're right. Yeah, I mean, Alice in Chains. What a fantastic band!
Oh yeah, absolutely astounding band.
Yeah, I mean, I preferred them so much to Nirvana, if I'm honest.
Me too.
Absolutely preferred them to them. Man in a Box. I mean, what a great song that is. For instance,
Yeah.
And again, that's another era. It sort of passed some of us rockers by a little bit. Pearl Jam and people like that.
Yeah.
Probably more your bag than mine, I would have thought, Mike.
Yeah, I suppose sort of in the early days of when I was getting into music, and when the first band I joined was a grunge band, so that was all the kind of stuff. Like Nirvana was a big influence back then, and all that kind of stuff. Foo Fighters a bit later on, and yeah, all that kind of stuff was around at that time. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Lovely to see the Foo Fighters as well. I mean, Dave Grohl, obvious talent. For me, coming out of the drummer sort of thing, not being able to get Kurt Cobain into the studio to actually work on some of his ideas. He thought, in typical Dave Grohl, fuck it, I'll do it myself.
The man is a legend.
Isn't he just, And when you think about what is considered to be the great concert bands, let's say Queen as an obvious example, Metallica as an obvious example, Green Day, Muse, and I think that the Foo Fighters sit very, very nicely amongst that bunch of people.
I'd agree. They can sell out, the O2, or they can sell out sort of pretty much any stadium they play. Yeah. So if you're doing that, I think you are doing damn well.
Yeah, and I mean, I saw the Foos a few times at Reading when they were, 17th on the bill or whatever it was, because obviously I'm a fan as well as a player. Lucky enough to be in a position whereby seeing, like, take the emergence of Van Halen for instance. Van Halen haven't played Britain that much.
No.
They really haven't, especially latterly. And to an extent, I hope they don't, because from what I can see of some of Dave's videos on the old YouTube, his voice is worse than David Coverdale's, and that's saying something.
And Eddie as well. He's not very well either, I think. No,
but he's not been very well for a while. No. He's had tongue cancer and all that sort of stuff. And to an extent, it's a bit like an old girlfriend, isn't it? Really, sort of thing. You remember her as being an amazing-looking woman, etc., etc. Then you see her when she's 70, and the perception of what it was then to what it is now.
Yeah, we all get older. We all get uglier.
Well, I'm your classic example of that one. To be fair,
we all are. None of us grow old that gracefully.
No, but again, the point I was sort of making was that back in the day, you could go to gigs for not a lot of money.
Mm.
So Van Halen played 5 nights in England, I think, in 1980, when you were born, and 2 of them were at the Rainbow Theatre in Finsbury Park.
Yeah.
Now, how about this? Hammersmith Odeon, of course, was the other side sort of thing, West London, and for some reason, Whitesnake's management decided, right, well, we'll play the same nights and we'll have Gary Moore supporting us. So Hammersmith Odeon, you've got Whitesnake supported by Gary Moore's Chief Force. At the Rainbow Theatre, you've got Van Halen supported by Wild Horses with Brian Robinson out of Thin Lizzy.
Right.
So I had a ticket for the first night of Van Halen, and I was so impressed. Again, I thought, right, I'm coming up tomorrow and I'll get a ticket off a tout. £4.
Jesus. Long gone are those days.
I know. And this is where I think it's very, very difficult for the youngsters of today. Well, for all of us, to be fair, but especially for the youngsters that want to go and see bands. So it's 1975, Mike. Oh, it's cool. Led Zeppelin did 5 nights. Right. My ticket. Go and have a guess.
£5.
£1.
Oh, come on. Jesus.
£1.
Right, so we're getting to the point where I'm starting to feel sort of really jealous, and the fact that I've missed all these grand things. So I've also just looked at what the time is. We have been talking for nearly 2 hours.
Have we really?
Yeah.
Well, we have, yeah. It could go. It can go on. I mean, some of the stories that you have with these things. I mean, some of them are completely unprintable, as you can probably imagine.
Yes.
Yeah, the experience that you have doing this stuff. I mean, I just hope in reality, as I said in my email, that people consider me to be a solid player that they could trust with a gig.
I'm sure they do. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been going around this long.
Yeah, it's been nice. It's been nice to. It's been a nice journey. I've made some incredibly good friends along the way. Of which I include you. In that little circle. Someone that I've met, if you like, and we've had a lot of conversation before before you came around my house.
Yeah.
Which was good.
No, it's been a pleasure talking to you, dear boy. So long overdue.
Indeedy. I hope I haven't been too boring, if you like, with all the old bits and pieces.
No, it's all. So that's one of the reasons I love doing this, is because I know I get a chance to actually learn about a person, hear the stories, hear the era they grew up in. It's all great.
Yeah, I mean, that thing we were talking about, Chris Chiddix, let's all jump in a van and go to Athens.
Yeah. It's stories like that keep the rock and roll sort of ideal and legend alive, isn't it?
Yeah. As I was saying earlier on, I was a bit too cowardly. My friend had essentially what we used to call it the brown bomber, but he had this old transit comma van type thing which he'd kitted out with some aircraft seats in the back and all that sort of stuff like you did. So the engine blows up. His friend's dad's got a breakers. Oh, I'll find you an engine, he says. Right, 3-litre Capri engine.
Oh, you just whack that in.
We'll just whack it in, and it fitted. With a little bit of cutting and pasting, it fitted. So, okay, right. So let's go to Karlsruhe in Germany and go and see Van Halen then. And I'm like, you're joking, right? I was thinking we were going to fly, and you want to drive. And so I said, all right, Andy, let's let's get this right. Okay, so you've bought a van off the post office, which is 20 years old. That's done Christ knows how many miles, right? You haven't got a map.
Can't see any flaw in this at all.
No, I know. You haven't got a map, right? You've just fitted an engine that you've got out of the breakers, if you like, into this particular van. Yeah. You coming? No. No, I'm bloody not. But he did it, with no map. Obviously, again, this is all pre-sat-nav, sort of thing. So, okay, so, right, let's head towards Paris and turn left.
I've been given directions like that before.
Yeah, and again, and that was the way it was back in the day.
Yeah.
I was far too much of a pussy, Mike, to do that. But he did it, and the Brown Bomber covered many, many miles, if you like, abroad. To actually sort of do those kind of things, which is mad. But,
and that's how legends are born.
Yeah. If I can just say one thing before we go, if that's all right.
Go for it.
Just one thing. Essex Coverman community, as we know, if you like, is a very, very great source of information. And Stevie Henderson has organised a golf day. Oh,
I saw him asking you to promote this earlier.
Yeah. Did he now? Anyway. The date escapes me. I think it's the 6th of September, but I think the actual golf day itself is actually full up with people, although there may well be some dropouts. But what Steve was looking for was being some sponsorship for things like the each hole sponsorship, nearest the pin, and all that sort of stuff. It's for St Luke's Hospice.
Okay.
And that's the charity. We're all sort of like doing that. St Luke's Hospice is close to my heart because my mother, God bless her, if you like, ended up in the hospice there when my mum died of cancer about 12 years ago. So it's a charity that's close to my heart. I'm doing the actual golf day, but anybody who's ever been out with me on a golf course will know that. I mean, if I go around in 150, I'll have probably done very well.
Oh, I don't even go there. I'm absolutely shocking.
I play squash. I play a little bit of tennis and all that sort of stuff, which squash is my sport, but I don't do that. But Mike, I'd like to say thanks ever so much indeed for giving me the opportunity to do this.
It's a pleasure, mate. So it's been a long time coming, and considering sort of how long we've sort of had conflabs back and forths about asking for depths and things, this is the actual only the sort of actual second time we've been able to have a proper chat.
Which has been really, really nice, and like I say, I hope it's not been as boring, if you like, or not as exciting as others, sort of thing. But
no, it's not about that, mate. It's about seeing and hearing the stories behind the face of the people that we go to see at gigs and everything, and that's just always a good thing.
Indeedy. So yeah, thanks to everybody else for tuning in and asking the questions, and we'll see you out on the road soon.
We're all hoping.
I think our first one, we've got we're doing a thing over Brightlingsea on Bank Holiday weekend in August. So I think that's the 30th.
No, let's hope that happens.
Well, that's been brought forward since the COVID thing.
Ah, interesting.
So it's an outside gig.
Yeah.
And the guys told me a few people are actually doing it, but we'll see. Yeah. And we got an open air. Beggar have got another open air thing on Freelands on Bank Holiday Sunday on the 31st. But we'll see if they go.
All right, mate. Well, thank you very much for joining me and giving up your time. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Pleasure's all mine, Mike. Thanks for having me along.
That's all right, bud. And thank you everyone for tuning in. Thank you everyone who liked the stream. And we will see you all very soon. So all the best, everyone.
Yeah. Cheers all. Yeah, good night. Thank you.